Our next session is all about hotel dining. So we're going to hear from the experts on hotel restaurants, what type of concepts are successful, how do you forge these partnerships, are branded restaurants more successful than in-house offerings, how do you turn these restaurants from an amenity into a profit center, and how can partnering with hotels and successful internationals, how can you roll them out? So to moderate this session, I'm delighted to bring the head of hotels and hospitality group for the Middle East and Africa of JLL. JLL are great supporters of ours at all our events throughout the EMEA. And I'm delighted to have Shihab Ben Mahmoud to join me up on stage. Shihab? There he is. Welcome. You're all set to go. You've got your mics up. Is it working? We're struggling a bit, but hopefully it'll be great.
That wasn't me. Holy Jesus.
I will sit in the middle.
I was right next to you.
Yes, okay. Excellent.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm Shihab Ben Mahmoud. I head the hotels and hospitality team of JLL Johnson LaSalle for the Middle East and Africa region. I have the pleasure and privilege today of moderating for you and on your behalf a panel of outstanding experts. We have here today Puri, Damien, Christian, and Julide. It could be argued that the time that we have allocated today and which is sticking in front of us is not in line with the complex and complicated history between F&B, catering, dining, whatever the term we use, and hospitality. While some of the most prestigious names in hospitality, like César Ritz, have their roots in the F&B, in the catering business, the relationship between hospitality and catering has become under scrutiny, under strain, under stress over the past few years. And we cannot not notice the impressive growth that has been achieved by all the segments of catering and the F&B business, and this is obviously closely related to the growth of cities as centers of human activity. So in our the time that we have today, we will not be able to cover all the topics, and there is no shortage of topics when it comes to the relationship between hotels and F&B. It could go from the impact of in-room dining on the revenue per square foot of hotels, urban hotels, or other topics that are discussed often here in Dubai about the all-inclusive concept and to what extent it is impacting the F&B in hotel. However, we will focus on some of the hot issues, and we have a very good panel. And so the main question today, I think, at hand is whether the F&B is a weakness or an opportunity for the hospitality. And while this is a general question, I would like to start with have the opinion of Puri on this front. So, dining, is it a weakness or an opportunity for hospitality?
Well, that's like asking, is the cup half full or is it half empty? I think it's a weakness and an opportunity, and because it's a weakness, it creates an opportunity. One of the things that we clearly see is that if every hotel were to take a look at their real estate, which is dedicated to food and beverage, and see the yields per square foot, or use any benchmark or any measure, we would realize that there is an opportunity. There are some operators that do it better than others, but generally speaking, it would be fair to say that it is a huge opportunity, because invariably most hotels sit on prime real estate in super locations, and oftentimes the food and beverage isn't that successful.
Julie, do you share Puri's, and you have a very special position, so...
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I do agree. Some hotel operators are obviously better than others, and that's why we see in some cases in the last couple of years where hotel operators have changed their systems, have focused more on F&B, have gotten different divisions, specializing, getting F&B specialists in, and taking the whole food and beverage and looking at it completely differently. And in other cases where the owners feel that the hotel operator maybe isn't as strong, you see more and more the owners actually taking charge of the food and beverage and saying, well, that's great, you go ahead and manage that, but we would like to keep this section for us, and we would like to do it ourselves, or partner with other brands and bringing in the brands, and you see that more and more happening as well. So yes, absolutely.
Transitioning on the opportunity argument, and I think that Jumeirah has a very interesting experience with that regard. So, Christian, are we moving from? There was a few years ago a trend of owning company and operating company. Are we moving towards a separation between the F&B and the rest of the hotels department?
Very much, and I think especially in the region, we're seeing a separation come through. Us, we obviously in the situation, very young, newly built up, big giant resorts, hotels, and facilities, and taking the approach. When you go into Europe, when you go into America, you obviously find hotels which represent a small core restaurant, food and beverage offering, and that's what's I think happening now. And we as Jumeirah Restaurant Group very much pioneering that thing through, which has been launched to take the non-core restaurants. And non-core really to define is restaurants which are not necessarily needed to the hotel impact, but still offer not an amenity, so an offer a great F&B experience within the sites. Licensing, of course, I think is always something which is in the region very big, and that's the reason why we try. So our prime focus goes very much, and it's across the board, not just to bring brands from externals, and also look at focusing on in-house creation, but put experts behind, focus on it, and purely focus on operating them as freestanding, under freestanding philosophy, with a single point of responsibility behind. And I think that's the success of a strong freestanding restaurant or brand or franchise. It is the ownership of it, and it is the ownership specific to this concept, to have the concept defined and then
You mentioned single point of responsibility. Allow me to bounce back on that. How do you manage this? I mean, it must be quite disruptive to the traditional hospitality model, to the role of from the role of the GM going throughout the rest of the organization. How do you manage this? What are the challenges?
Challenges equal positives. I think it's more having a combined understanding and agreement what we want to do, and that's how we have managed it, obviously, to sit with all different stakeholders with an ownership perspective and ownership side, including us, together and agreeing before we start that off and doing proper evaluation. I think when you see, especially in this region again, if you go into that model we're doing, you've got restaurants which are not built necessarily to be freestanding fully. So you really have to go deeper and set a direct structure in place behind it. I think the management is not as difficult if you sit clear and get an agreement and create a strategy which you stick to and obviously try forward.
Julie, do you see?
Well, yeah, we were talking about this earlier, and at the end of the day, I think of the last 2 years, we've been talking in some of those sessions about how companies are changing and how F&B is changing and how even within hotel and hotel operators are starting to look at restaurants as freestanding restaurants, how we are positioning them as freestanding restaurants. We're looking at true concepts, delivering a message, the marketing portion of it, you know, and more hotel operators are doing that. Where I see not the neglect, but where I see still a lot of work that can be done is a portion that's missing, and that's the management of that restaurant. You know, we do a great job in hotels saying, okay, we bring a brand or create a brand, a concept. But then we don't change necessarily the mindset of that restaurant manager and that chef de cuisine or, you know, chef of the restaurants. They don't work as entrepreneurs. I mean, we've been listening to some amazing sessions. Our managers in hotel operations do not have that mindset. You still have a marketing team that takes care of marketing. You still have a sales team that goes and gets business. And the managers are still those hotel restaurant managers. And I think there is an opportunity for hotel operators to look at that, to kind of like combine and make that freestanding restaurant a true freestanding restaurant with the management team.
Puri, are hotels still the venue of choice for an F&B experience compared to what they were?
I don't think so. I think that if we go back in history and take a look at what the Ritz in Paris used to be, or what the Ritz in London or the Savoy in London, they had, even at that time, people like Escoffier cooking at the Savoy in London or at the Ritz in Paris. So they paid a lot of attention to it, and that eventually was sort of the seat of dining in cities that you went to. But today, the independent restaurant scene has taken over so dramatically. And I saw this myself in my previous life when I moved to Singapore in 1991. And over a period of 10 years, I saw that landscape change completely. The independent restaurant scene became a lot more vibrant. The hotels weren't necessarily the seat of dining in those communities. And that's what's happening everywhere. Sometimes in a particular market you might be a bit more compelled, for instance here, because of licensing issues, but generally speaking, all around the globe, and it's now more and more in emerging markets also, that the independent restaurant scene has become very, very good, and therefore people have a lot more choice.
Building on that, Damien, what is your view on the role of operators, of hotel operators? Are they losing the F&B battle, or are they catching up and adjusting?
They realized that they were losing the battle, And as we speak, they understand that, to jump on your point, Juliet, that the skill set of a successful restaurateur are very different than the one of a successful hotelier. And so, by changing this mindset, they're finally going to the right direction.
If you allow, can we give the mic to the floor at this stage to see if there are any questions before we continue? Any question?
Ramon Scott, Calamander. The problem, we had the same idea. Our restaurants, fabulous locations, the best, largest, most beautiful restaurant sites for our hotels and beach resorts in Sri Lanka. And we wanted to do this, and then we had some very powerful legacy interests. I'd like to know how you got past that in, say, Jumeirah or others who've tried it. Because the service charge model in the hotel, it's an old hotel, it's been there for a long time, is pooled across everybody. So you got your F&B in the hotel, and we got our rooms division. Now, of course, because the F&B isn't as strong a business and doesn't generate as much revenue, and the service charge is 10% of revenue, the resistance I got was the F&B side of the hotel didn't want to be split out and separately managed and be the independent standalone business and hopefully transform themselves, because you could see the calculation going on their head. I'll get less service charge, so I want to stay part of the hotel. And the resistance at ground level prevented me from doing that. How do you get past simple things like service charge and service charge splits and operational resistance?
Very, very good question. I think that's the hard part, because talking about what we do as an example sounds fantastic, but there's exactly those topics from service charge. And I think the biggest one is mentality, and how far are we going to separate those restaurants. So what we really did is we've evaluated it for a very long time, and we've taken those restaurants onto a 100% different culture platform of how to operate it, linking in with the respective concept and eliminating the big pot service charge as an example and putting it back to the outlet. So making people part of the success of the restaurant, being also, and I think that's the biggest one, showing colleagues, showing our staff the way how a real freestanding restaurant is being driven. And if it's successful, it will be equally successful. So the whole service charge model we've changed around, the whole recruitment model we've changed around, and we are just in the process of going through with it. So it's a very, very new venture. We went into it, but the research and all the things you've mentioned has been clearly identified. Tables, new processes, decisions being made away from the hotel, and really thinking of freestanding. And that starts with services you would receive in a hotel, which you wouldn't necessarily be able to afford in a freestanding restaurant. So we do leverage in a certain part, but we put a clear line through it. It is pain. It is definitely some very heavy discussions we have. We've had them, and so far we are on a great journey to eliminate those concerns.
Please. As we are waiting for the mic to reach, Julie, as you have been here for the past 2 days, and we heard a lot about the new concepts and very exciting ideas. And how do you make sure that all these very creative and ever-changing F&B concepts fit with the hotel brand, with the DNA which is more stable, I would say, or perceived as more constant and stable? How do you make sure that there is a fit?
Well, first of all, of course, I mean, when you get those restaurants, when you get those brands, when you're selecting them, and you're looking at the positioning about who you want to be. I mean, we have a destination, so we look at that destination and where we want to position them. Then it is our concepts that we have right now are not necessarily inside of a hotel building, but part of a hotel property. So you do want to, of course, be at that level because there's a certain expectation. The guest comes to the Ritz-Carlton and expects a Ritz-Carlton and doesn't really care necessarily about who it's managed by. So the quality has to be there, the service has to be there, but then you can give it a spin on a personality, on a positioning as who you want to be and what kind of destination you want to be. And then when you hire the team, of course, it has all to fit within that. You know, we are looking to, when we recruit, especially the management team, but also further down, we're looking to recruit a bit of both. We're looking to recruit people that have been in five-star hotel operations because they have the structure, the discipline, the standards that you would expect from a hotel operation. But in the same time, we look for freestanding restaurant experience because it has that passionate entrepreneur, that looking for that go-getter, that business sense, and how can I be more active on social media, and how can I position my restaurant, and how can I communicate my restaurants, which is a whole different mindset. So it is putting all that together to make it a success.
So it makes the role of asset managers even more difficult and rich. Silly. Do you have the mic, right?
Silly.
Yes, please.
Salim Bitar from the Ojan Group. Just a quick question. Without having the benefit of the scale like Jumeirah does, when you are in a competitive market on F&B like Dubai is, and you've got a hotel operator which is focused on providing service at the hotels, is there a magic formula to make the F&B successful? Is it bringing in a Michelin star chef? Is it bringing in a well-known brand out of London, out of the US, or whatever, to make it successful? What is the panel's experience with this?
Christian.
Yeah, Salim, I don't think that there's any one formula to this to be able to bring in a star chef or to be able to bring in a brand out of from overseas. I think the key really is to be able to, for me personally, I think it's consumer driven. And it's also about more than just the consumer, the ability to be able to get the product, the ability to be able to get the talent. There's a Mexican place that has opened here in Dubai. I went there a few months ago and I tasted some of the food, and it was a fairly good attempt at being authentic. I went there again like yesterday and I tasted the stuff, and it was it looked the same, but it didn't taste the same anymore. So I looked at the guy and I said to him, look, there's not one single Mexican person here on your team, and there's absolutely no one that understands the product, that understands the profile. And so, yeah, the salsa verde and the pico de gallo still look like pico de gallo, but they don't taste like pico de gallo anymore. So you're challenged with so many different things. Personally, I think it's the consumer. Also, it's fair to say that a tom yum soup or sushi or meze are no longer regional foods or ethnic foods. They've all become modern comfort foods. And our ability to be able to deliver in a restaurant sushi and at the same time to be able to deliver a good tom yum soup are also important. So I think it has a lot to do with the consumer. And I'm not sure that bringing a chef or bringing a brand from America or London or whatever is the answer. The answer really lies in understanding the consumer profile and being able to do something that speaks of the destination. And contrary to what one of my colleagues just said, we've agreed to disagree, so I'm allowed to say this. I think adhering to the overall positioning of the hotel is irrelevant. One can have a complete antithesis to that. I mean, there's no one that tells me that I can't build a rum shed in the middle of a five-star deluxe hotel. You know, I can certainly do something that is more that is more bohemian, that is different, but speaks to my customer, my guest, my consumer.
And so, how do you see the role of owners in these decisions?
I think the owners have every right to be able to make a comment. I dare say so, because when they give up the management to a management company, they do that because they have a certain level of trust, a certain level of confidence, and a certain amount of respect for the operator. And if that doesn't exist, then there's no contract. So all the things that one sees now today about how the owners must approve the general manager, they must approve the sales and marketing, they must approve the financial controller, they must approve this, they must approve that, doesn't work. They should manage it themselves. So the owner has a role, but I think it's equally important to be able to trust the capability of the operator.
Damien, have you seen in your experience in the region a growing role or a changing role of hotel owners in this area?
Absolutely. All the owner cares about, except for some trophy properties, is a return. So if the F&B outlets are not giving this return, the owner will go into it and ask for alternatives. It's as simple as that.
Julie?
Well, I agree, obviously.
Any question, please?
Hello. Yes, hi. Rabia Fighali from Roya International. Yes, Mr. Puri, when you mentioned the hotels having a shack, you can look at the Park and Meridian in New York with the Burger Shack in the back. So that's a good example. My question, though, is we're looking at hotels and we have these agreements with the hotel management companies. The advent of the F&B management companies such as Jumeirah, do you see, I mean, we are seeing it as Roya, do you see a trend whereby the owner is signing an agreement with a hotel company and an F&B management company, and is Jumeirah looking at that, taking over F&B in non-Jumeirah managed hotels?
Yes, that's obviously definitely a way to go, and that's a way we're exploring, and that's a way how we're outlining it. I think the interesting part is, again, and I'm drifting a bit back now, but is really being seen not just as an innovator, but for us, innovation within our Jumeirah Restaurant Group very much is to determine first the concept and align ourselves, and then put whatever Puri just said behind it, and then be obviously open to explore any external opportunities. And I think more importantly is to create not just one restaurant. We heard it in an earlier session. One restaurant is one thing, but once you start spreading that restaurant concept, you need to be able to attain it. The owner of that restaurant has to have a lot of commitment. I think we will hear in the later stage as well from my colleague as well, Hank. We have concepts if we're looking at it, and we're open to look at it anywhere outside. But again, we're becoming very clear, and I actually know you were referring to a Mexican restaurant. I'm very proud about the Mexican restaurant to stay in our portfolio, and I hope it wasn't ours, which I know it wasn't. But it's to take a concept which we're committing in, and we take it as freestanding, and links all together with single point of responsibility, which you will see later on as well, and not taking the thunder is taking the team, and it isn't just, again, a beautiful interior design, great atmosphere, a beautiful music system, where a lot of money has gone into it. It is the team, it is the soul of the concept. And for me as a culinarian, and that's what we're doing currently within all our entire portfolio, is to define the concept, and to define the concept to death and stick to it. And I think that's the big one where we have sometimes the controversy within hotels, because you're taking on cultures, you're having different travel groups, different things, and we're trying to make them all happy in one restaurant. That's where we stay with our all-day destination restaurants. And I call them destination restaurants because we also need to take a different philosophy than just putting chefing dishes from one nationality cooked, 5 different food offerings. So that's what we're taking on a separate note in the group. And then what we do as JHE very much, and I think that's the trend then create some brands, be confident, make sure the first mothership works, and then open and happy to talk about it.
I think we have a question here, right?
Hi, I'm actually an independent restaurant owner who just leased a space in a five-star hotel, so this conversation is actually very interesting. But I'm primarily interested about the way that hotel groups develop concepts internally. I think different companies obviously do it different ways. Do you feel that there's anything to be learned from smaller hotel groups like the Andre Balaz group, like the Soho House group, like Ian Schrager, for example? And how much does innovation or innovation departments or research and development go into developing concepts, restaurant concepts?
Puri, do you feel that the hotel operators are taking into consideration the experience of others in developing concepts?
I think they do, but I think if you take a look at the ones that you just mentioned, Soho House, if you take a look at everything that Nick Jones does, he makes it, in fact, he makes it extremely simple and very basic. His burger concept, his chicken concept, his pizza concept, they're mighty simple. So he understands his customer and is essentially giving them comfort food. Andre Balaz, more of the same, Ian Schrager does what he always did best. He builds nightclubs with bedrooms. And so he knows the formula and he does it extremely well. So it's really a matter of, can others learn from that? Absolutely. But they've got a model that suits their personality, that suits their skill set, that suits what they do extremely well. And we as consumers have learned to accept, we know what we expect from Andre Balaz or Nick or from Ian Schrager, isn't it?
And they stick to it, really, to add in. I think they really stick to it. They won't get, through a TripAdvisor comment, moving on the side, and certainly let's keep offering something else within your very distinctive concept. And I think that's what I'm saying again is concept definition. A concept isn't a beautiful PowerPoint presentation, and I think going to innovation, that's what we're really looking at and investing heavily in it, to look at the innovation, the research. For me, as a culinarian and very much kitchen, Mediterranean is a big word, but tell me, what is Mediterranean? What are you referring to? Because I have to think much further down on who do I going to recruit, who do I going to put in to deliver that. And a concept must have soul, not just a beautiful picture. And I think that's what they get right, because they keep it very simple. They keep it very, very simple. And the Meridian was mentioned in New York City, the Parker Meridian, the burger shack in the middle of the lobby. It is what you get, but it is, you go there, you start creating consistency, and that's our strong philosophy, and I think we have a lot to do. We have a lot of work on it. With every restaurant we have within the group of the hotel side or then the restaurant group is to create the concept, to gain consistency and not be too innovative, creative on changing your menu every 2 months because we think we need to be different. Create a core of it and then bring excitement in with a team which is entrepreneurial injected. And through consistency, obviously, you get credibility, and through credibility, very straight into loyalty. And I think the recipe is there, and simple is better than trying to do everything at once.
On this note, we will bring our panel to an end. Obviously, we will continue our exchange and very interesting exchange of the floor, of the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in showing our appreciation to our dear panel members for their contributions.